Good morning. It's Talent Tuesday, a workforce collaboration between Iowa City area development and the business partnership. My name's Tom Banta, and I'm going to take a couple minutes today just to highlight a couple of the items in this month's issue. But I'd like to start with a thank you. A thank you to those of you that took a little bit of time last month to enjoy our volume 1 of this particular resource and took the time to share your feedback and insight. It's incredibly valuable. We hope that you'll continue to do so going forward, and we look to incorporate it whenever possible. So be on the lookout for that and let us know how we're doing. It'll be appreciated. So let's dive into this month's content. I'd really like to highlight the featured content for this month. It is a Zoom recording of an ICR Talent Coalition meeting that we had in February of this year. Ron Cox from CIRAS out of Iowa State University is our featured content, and he talks about the Iowa Workforce Skirmishes. There's great content in here. It talks about the history of workforce in Iowa, the current state, even the challenges that existed prior to COVID, how those might have been exacerbated during that time. And then he also offers 29 unique opportunities or strategies that can be pursued, as well as additional resources and support in pursuit of those. A number of those strategies and support resources also exist in our workforce resource guide. So I encourage you to do a deep dive. This is probably a 60 to 90 minute Zoom. So create some time and give yourself a little bit of space to dive into this, but it's content rich, and I highly encourage you to explore it further, and feel free to reach out and discuss it with us. We'd be happy to support you in developing these strategies going forward. A complement to that is also in our partner section with the interview that was conducted by Jenny Banta of the Iowa City Area Business Partnership when she sat down with the UI Reach program. So spend 15 minutes to learn more about that group and how it might be a good fit for part of your recruitment strategy going forward. In the event space, take a look at Iowa Ideas. That's coming up the middle of this month. It's a free conference, October 13th and 14th, and they always have very robust and rich workforce-related content. So if you have some time and availability, I encourage that as well. And last and certainly not least is our Talent Hub. And the candidates from that hub, we've included some video footage from our 9/16 or September 16th employer call that talks a little bit about these candidates. It's a chance to do a deep dive with Shannon on the folks that she's interviewed most recently. And for those of you that are interested in joining this call in the future, that is also part of our events tab. I think the next call will be on Friday, October 21st at 9 a.m. We hope you can join us for that as well. So with that, I'll let you back to it, but thanks again for taking some time. And as always, please share your feedback and have a great Tuesday.
Ron Cox is the director of CIRAS at Iowa State University. CIRAS is the Center for Industrial Research and Services. Ron's been with that organization for 25 years, starting in the field in the Mason City area, and since 2001 has been the director of CIRAS. So we're excited to have Ron today, and I'll turn it over to you, Ron, to share your research on population and kind of how we can tackle this going forward. So the floor is yours.
Okay, I'm going to read you a story this morning. I wrote this, we wrote a proposal about 5 years ago saying a train wreck in workforce is about to happen. And we received that funding and we're about to come out with what you're about to see when COVID hit. So we were kind of slowed down. But this past summer, it hasn't been a couple years, Tom, just this past summer, I scheduled about 25 talks. Thinking I'd be done and I could go back to my day job. You will be close to the 100th time I've given this talk in the last 8 months. If you've seen it before, you're going to see some more things, new things in it today, but I'm done giving this talk. It's time to start moving one-on-one with companies towards solutions. Okay, it's called the Iowa Workforce Skirmishes because I contend the troubles you're having today, you ain't seen nothing yet. It's going to get worse. It's going to be a war. And it's a bedtime story because there is a villain. He's scary as all get out, but I would not put you to bed if I didn't think we could defeat this villain. So let's get going. If you're not familiar with my center, CIRAS, We believe that your businesses thriving are the foundation of healthy communities. We work with about 1,700 businesses a year. I'm dedicating this story to my first mentor, and I will get to it later, why an aerospace engineer is talking about workforce. But I went to work in aerospace engineering. You open up 100 books, and they all show you the same thing. And my mentor said, you need to turn 90 degrees and look at that wing differently, because you're going to see something that's not in that book, and it's going to make you a better designer. And today I'm going to ask you to start looking at workforce different. Table of contents, workforce past, present, the left cross. This is what I'm going to try to depress the heck out of you on this Friday morning. Turn 90 degrees. Are you ready to turn? Workforce yet to come. And the best movie line that was never said, Apollo 13, failure is not an option. Okay, why did I write this story? At the height of the Vietnam War, we surveyed Iowa industry. Number one problem, lack of workforce. Number one solution industry said we needed, more apprenticeship programs. And here we are, 50 years later, we got the same problems and some people saying we've got the same solutions. Okay, introduction. It was the best of times. Hopefully COVID's in the rearview mirror. This is the PMI. It's a national survey of industry. Every month, are you getting better, the same, or worse than last month? 50 is even. So anything below 50, shrinking economy, above growing, and you can see all the different recessions. We sent you home during COVID. You didn't go on vacation, you didn't eat out, you saved your money, and now you're blowing it. And supply chains and workforce can't keep up with it. We are at a level of growth in the economy we haven't seen since the double dip recession of the early 80s. And it was the worst of times. Every shot you see there is a photo I've taken driving around Iowa, giving this talk. We're hiring, now hiring, apply within, hiring awesomeness. We have been called, my center, by manufacturers, construction companies, insurance companies, YMCAs, daycares, hospitals. Everybody is looking for people. Okay, prologue. Here's the, Dustin set the stage, but here, let me just shake you up a little bit. How bad is it? In 1950, Iowa, Minnesota, and Florida had identical populations. Google it, 2.5 million. And look what's happened since 1950. Florida is 7 times our size. Minnesota, almost double. Let's look at those two cases. Case one, Florida. How did Florida go from the land of mosquitoes to the land of mice? Well, technology. The window air conditioner widely became available. And you could afford to actually live in the South. But they didn't stop there. They created a space industry, a tourism industry, international trade, a retirement industry. Decade over decade, 70% of their counties have been growing 10% or more. Okay, it's not the economy, it's the weather, stupid. That's why people don't move to Iowa, because it's so cold. Well, that's Minnesota, and there's a kid in a t-shirt. I'm telling you, they're tougher than us, and they've figured out how to grow despite weather like that. What's going on? I call it the continuous improvement model of population growth. The Twin Cities are growing. They've got technology in Rochester. They've got tourism up north. They've embraced immigration. It all adds up, a little here, a little there. They passed us in 1920. Okay, let's get into the chapters. Chapter 1, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse because your competition is getting better. I decided to see how Iowa was growing in Minnesota outside of Des Moines. So I took the counties that are the Des Moines metro today and looked at those same counties in 1900. In 1900, 1 out of 12 people lived in today's Des Moines metro. And now we're getting close to 1 out of 4 Iowans living there. So if you take Des Moines out of Iowa and take the Twin Cities out of Minnesota, this is how the rest of those two states are going. And from 1970 today, Iowa is basically the same size it was 50 years ago outside of the Des Moines metro. If somebody grew outside of the Des Moines metro, somebody shrunk. But Minnesota is still growing. outside of their metro. It's not just the Twin Cities doing it. Our growth has been what I call lumpy. The red bar to the far left, that's how much the US has grown since 1950. It's a little over doubled in size, from about 150 to 300 plus million. Iowa has only grown about 20%, but it's been lumpy. If you live where you live, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, or Des Moines, Ames, or Davenport, you're growing at near the US average. The other metros in Iowa, closer to the Iowa average, and it's the rural areas that have been shrinking. In the last 50 years, Iowa is the 5th slowest growing state, with every state around us growing faster. And why is that important? The workforce comes from the population, and this is the rough equation. Half the people work, half are kids, retirees, or of working age and don't or can't work. The other half are working. So if the population is flat, your potential workforce is flat. So there is a villain. Is the workforce villain? He's trying to keep your companies and community from growing. And he didn't show up in COVID. He's been here for decades, hiding. Okay, chapter 2, workforce present, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. This is unemployment. Before COVID, 70% of Iowa's counties had fewer than 300 people looking for work. Over the last 3 decades, Iowa has the 4th lowest unemployment. Only 3 states have fewer people on unemployment than us. The country and Iowa jumped up during COVID. We're coming back down. This is employment, jobs. So I'm comparing the US, red dashed, with green, Iowa, coming out of the 2001 recession. Iowa was growing jobs at the same rate as the country. We didn't dip as much in the 2008 recession because we don't have a big tourism industry. Look at the country take off coming out of the 2008 recession. COVID hits, everybody's coming back. But we're back to close to the number of jobs we had a decade ago. We've lost a decade of growth. But that doesn't even concern me. This is what concerns me. We significantly slowed our job growth back in about 2015, 2016. And it wasn't the same in every industry. At the rate we're coming back, the country will probably be back to pre-COVID levels of jobs in a couple of months. But Iowa, all the projections I've seen were a year out. And even if we get back to that level, if we don't start growing jobs at a faster rate than what we were from 2015 to 2020, if you're trying to significantly grow your company, you're going to have problems. This is labor force participation rate. Of the people that could be working, what percent are working? In the United States, it's about 2 out of 3 people. So the red is the US, blue is Iowa. We have the 5th best labor force participation rate. Iowans want to work. We have lots of Iowans working. For every state above that red line, you've got states like West Virginia, and Mississippi, and Kentucky below it. So we should be proud of how many people in Iowa work. Now, if you subtract the US from Iowa, these 2 curves, you see how much better we are. That's this curve. We are, before COVID, about 7% better than the country on average. That means we have 7% more of our working age people working than the country does. Super. But that curve flattened out before COVID. And it's part of the reason you're having the problems you're having, because we had pulled all these people into the workforce and we're having struggles getting above that kind of 7% level. What happened here? There were 2 patches that allowed your companies to grow. One, we had a farm crisis. Farmers lost their farms, entered the workforce. Farmers took second jobs. Farmers' spouses entered the workforce. And it gave a shot in the arm to companies that wanted to grow. We also, in the United States and Iowa, had females enter the workforce in record numbers. And those females kept allowing US industry and Iowa industry companies to grow despite population issues. We had another patch in Iowa here. Iowa lost about 30,000 manufacturing jobs. Those people didn't stop working. They went to work in construction companies and service companies, et cetera, and it gave a shot in the arm and allowed companies to keep growing. So it was hiding some of our workforce issues. The villain was out there, but he was hiding. Okay, if that's not depressing enough, let me really knock you down. The left cross. I'm here to tell you, unless something really, really big happens that the data says hasn't happened in over 100 years. And by that, I mean global warming of massive proportions, East and West Coast floods, and everybody moves to Iowa because we're the highest, tallest place left. Unless that happens, nobody's coming. They haven't been coming for over 100 years, as Dustin pointed out. They're still not coming. So we got to solve this problem some other way. And the issue is we've likely run out of patches unless one of you is saying, hey, let's destroy this industry in Iowa so we can help the rest of us. I don't think we want that to happen. So in a nutshell, huge demand for what we make and our services. Our population and therefore workforce potential is flat. We have huge labor force participation rate, which is great, but it plateaued, and these patches are likely gone. So I won't get any more depressing than that. Let's get to solutions. A turn 90-degree look at workforce, right? We can keep doing what we're doing, kind of like in 1970, we're out of people, let's just keep doing the same thing, or we can do something different. So I'm going to suggest we do something different. My argument is there's no more people coming, nothing significant, but there will be more employees for some companies. So here's the basic idea. Here's everybody from 0 to 100 years old and the percent of them working. In Iowa, about half of the 16 to 20-year-olds work, about 3/4 of the 20 to 65-year-olds work, and about 1/3 of the 65 to 75-year-olds work. And all of us are searching through for that red bar, the unemployed, 2, 3, 4% of the population or of the workforce. And I'm saying, don't, I mean, you still look there, but here's where you need to spend more time, maybe. There's still about 1/4 of the population of working age that's not working. You've got a lot of people employed. They're just not employed in your county or our state or our country. It's also people you have employed today, but they're quitting to go work for somebody else. So every time you lose somebody, you have to hire somebody back to get to even, and then you have to hire another person to grow. Don't forget 3 and 4. Get more out of the people you have. Process improvements, automation. Iowa is in the bottom half of states in how productive we are. We have to become more productive. And 5, don't forget the workforce of the future. Okay, there's a really tough problem. Why? Because it's people. People are nonlinear. You're interconnected at work. You're interconnected at home. What in mathematics, I call it a nonlinear system of equations. And only an idiot would try to solve that. And oh, that's the problem. I'm an idiot. Guess what? An aerospace engineer is an idiot because he tries to make the best fighter in the world. And it's a nonlinear, complex system of equations. When you touch the nose, it affects the tail. When you touch the tail, it affects the nose. It is a really tough problem. But if we can solve that problem and make the best fighter in the world, why can't we design a solution for Iowa's workforce problem? So I looked at how we design fighter aircraft in the United States, and I used the approach to design workforce solutions for Iowa. So here's how it goes. That airplane is too complex. We break it into lots of pieces, nose, tail, engine, etc., and study them one at a time. And we've done the same with workforce. We have broken the Iowa workforce into 29 types of people. A group of people employed, working students, part-time employees, individuals with a disability, people that are employed, they're just not employed here, they're in other counties, commuting to Lynn County or Johnson County, in-state migration, out-of-state migration, process improvements, automation, get more out of the people you have, and future workers. So how do we design people? Well, let's look at how to design an airplane. How do we make that airplane bigger? We look at it one piece at a time because it's too complex. We take the wing, make it bigger, throw it in a wind tunnel. Did the airplane get better or worse? Put the wing back, make the tail bigger, put it in the wind tunnel, test it. Did it get better? Did it get worse? Put it back. And piece by piece by piece, you study it. Well, we're going to do that with people. How do you do it? Stick with me here. If everybody on this call were in a room and I said, everybody of average height, stand together. Everybody really short, get on the left. Everybody really tall, get on the right. You get that curve. And you all remember it from high school or college. Hopefully, it's called a bell curve, right? A normal distribution. Well, that's the old-fashioned way of looking at you. I want you to turn 90 degrees and look at yourself differently. I'm not asking you to change dramatically. I want you to get out of your groups and line up from left to right, shortest to tallest. And if you do it, you get this curve. 0, ranked lowest, is the shortest person on this call. At the far right, ranked 1 is the tallest person, okay? Well, where are we going with this? How does that solve my workforce issues? Stick with me. We're going disco dancing. Okay. John Travolta, if you're my age, you know who John Travolta is. He wants to go disco dancing, but he's too short. He's ranked at the 40th percentile. He wants to be a 60th percentile. How does he get there? Well, we know the height of people in the United States. It's a bell curve. And we can do the math. And if you put a 1.5-inch heel on John Travolta's shoe, he moves up that line on the dance floor, and he's now at the 60th percentile. Okay, it's kind of simple if you've got the data. Well, we don't care about people's height. We care what percent of veterans are working and what percent aren't, and can we pull more of them into the workforce? So what do? We've got to not look at people's height, but who's working and who's not. So we're going to compare every county in the ICR space. I think you've got 7 counties in the region, right? And we're going to compare you to 1,100 counties in the Midwest. We are not comparing you with counties in Texas or Florida or California, because guess what? It's warm there in February. And we've chosen to live in the tundra zone with other people like us, hardy Midwesterners. So who in the Midwest is good or bad at hiring people? And let's compare you to them. So here's what we do. We get curves like this. This is the percent of 65 to 74-year-olds that are working in the 1,100 counties around you. The worst county is at the left at getting people to work. The best county is on the right. Almost 60% are working. And we know where these counties are. How is it this county in Michigan is so bad at hiring people? Only 1 out of 8 65 to 74-year-olds are working. But this county in Kansas, they've figured out how to get 4 out of 8 of that age working. What are they doing? Well, we don't actually have to go to Michigan or Kansas, because the worst Iowa county at getting 65 to 74-year-olds to work is one of the worst in the Midwest. And the best Iowa county, and we know which one it is one of the best in the Midwest. Now, we have 29 curves like this. We know which counties in Iowa and the Midwest are good at hiring people with a disability and are terrible, are good at getting people to migrate to their county, and who's terrible at getting it. And we can go look at them and learn from them. So are we going to get 100% of the 65 to 74-year-olds to work? Not a chance. But just like John Travolta, we didn't put 3-foot boot heels on them and make them 8 foot tall. We moved them up just a little bit higher in the rankings. And we can look at the math, because it's a bell curve, and know that if you are able to pull move up from 40th to 60th percentile, that's 4% more 65 to 74-year-olds. Now, we know how many 65 to 74-year-olds are living in your counties, and I can tell you if that's 50 or 500 or 5,000. And I can tell you if you move up the ranking in hiring individuals with a disability, if it's 50 or 500 or 5,000. And I can help you compare the different kinds of individuals and tell you where the most potential is. So what do we do on an airplane? We now know everything about the tail, the wing, everything else. We move them all at once, and we go off in a direction and make a better airplane. And we do it with people too. We call it the workforce vector, which if you go in this direction, you're not going to find many workers and they have these characteristics. But if you go in this direction, you're going to find a lot more people and you're going to know what they look like. Okay, chapter 5. Are you, ICR, ready to turn 90 degrees? Right? Lynn Gaynor, I don't know who she is. She probably stole this from somebody more important and I just couldn't find the quote. But stories can go two directions. You can go down the tubes and the villain wins, or you can defeat the villain. So I'm going to assume you want to grow. And so this story has two paths. Path 1, COVID did this to us and COVID's going away. So we're going to have no problems finding people in the future. Or path 2, maybe we're going to have these workforce problems for a few years to come. And we better do something about getting together and slaying this villain. And that means you need a superhero because it's a big problem. So, does anybody on the call want this villain to win? Of course not. You want to go down path 2. That's why you're on this call. Some superheroes go it alone. Some have a sidekick. If you want a sidekick, we're there to help. Our center has a number of federal programs, a number of labs on campus we work with, and lots of partners. We work with companies on how to grow their companies and look at process improvements and automation and workforce. Okay, chapter 6, workforce yet to come. There's dreamers and planners. Planners make their dreams come true. You have to have a plan. A we're hiring sign isn't a plan. We have a 4-step process. 1, what are you doing today? What's working? What's not? What's your culture? What can work? What might not work? 2, you look at the workforce vector. It's messy. There's 29 bell curves. There's a lot of math, and I forgot to take math when I was in high school. I'm a people person. Well, we help you with the math. It's not that complex. What is more complex is the next step. Every one of these kinds of people, 29 columns, have issues. There's a reason they're not working. There's a reason they're not working for you. And we do a literature search to find out why these people work or don't work. And we look at your company and say, are you good at this? Do you have this covered or not? If you're trying to hire more females, are you addressing the issues that females have that are keeping them out of the workforce? And the toughest of all, you got to change. And if there's one message I'll leave you with today, you've got to change how you look at things. You've got to address your root causes and then market and say you're open for business because you're the kind of company these people want to work for. Okay, chapter 7, let's wrap this up. Failure is not an option. Apollo 13 went boom through the moon. The movie people came up with that line. That's not what was said. This is what Gene Kranz actually said. I've never lost a man in space. I'm not starting now. I've got to believe it. You've got to believe it. The entire team has to believe we can bring them home alive. So the question is, do you believe it? Do you believe you've done well? In the last 50 years, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City has been growing by leaps and bounds compared to the rest of Iowa. Do you believe you can keep it going and that trajectory, given our population problems? If you want to grow in Iowa, you can grow out of state, right? You can buy companies out of state, but if you want to grow here, we contend leadership. You can't just assign it to HR. Leadership of the company has to look at workforce different. It's not one person, the whole team, product design, processes in the plant, everything has to be looking at workforce differently. And you've only got 3 options. Virtual people. Get more out of the people you have if you can't find more people. Productivity improvements, supplement them with machines, computer systems. And if you need bodies, there's only 3 options, 3 sub-options. Solve problems people have to attract them into your company. Stop the churn. Iowa's in the bottom quartile of states in turnover, and we've got to stop laying people off and hiring them back. Because when you lay them off, the company next door is going to hire them and they're not going to give them up. You got to steal from others. It's the American way. Good companies win, weak companies go out of business. And you've got to develop the workforce of the future. So I'll close with this. This is an ad from a company in Minnesota that has branch plants in Iowa. Their goal last year was to hire 1,500 new employees. Look at this laser focused ad. Do you know how to do the job? No. We're going to pay you to go to training. Do you speak English? No. Not a problem. We're going to pay you to go to English class, and we'll pay for the English classes too. Do you have holidays other than Christmas and Easter you want off? Not a problem. You got them off. Do you need to pray in the middle of the workday? That's kind of inconvenient, but we want you to come work for us. So we're going to build prayer rooms in our facilities. Does your religion make you wash your hands and face and feet before praying? Well, we've got sinks. How about if we put foot washing stations in our plant? This is a company. They have found a population that is underemployed. They found out what was keeping them out of the workforce. They decided they wanted to be the preferred company, and they changed and then put ads out saying, come work for us. We will give you what you want. So, are you ready to turn 90 degrees and look at workforce differently? That's the end of my talk. I'll open this up for Q&A, and I'll put out a shameless plug. We've started a monthly HR roundtable. It's, I think, the third Wednesday of each month. You vote, attendees vote on what the next topics are. The next one is in March, I think March 16th, something like that. If you go to the CIRAS website under our events and workshops, you'll find it. Okay, what questions?
Thank you, Ron. What questions do we have for Ron?
I'm going to start asking you questions if you don't ask me questions.
Hey, Ron, just a quick question as far as you've been interacting with local business here in our community. I mean, you're talking about laser focused workforce strategies. So how would a company even go about, you said 29 different segments. I mean, how do you laser focus in on a segment? Like you mentioned, looking at the specifics of the county you're in, and that's kind of where you start? Or I mean, is it, just trying to understand how you get to that laser focus point that you're kind of speaking to?
Yeah, so that was kind of the 4-step process, a little more on that. So we'll go into a company in a county and say, this is what your workforce vector looks like. Here's the potential. Now, the reality is, guess what? Iowa is not that different. Most Iowa counties look the same. Unless you go to maybe a county with a meat packing plant that might have a lot of permanent resident aliens. You might go to, guess what? Johnson County, and you find a whole lot more students. But outside of these kind of blips like that, most of us look the same. So we start and head down the 29. And what we say is if every company in the community goes after one group, you might be competing against each other. But if, so some things have more potential, some have less. But you as a company can succeed at any of the 29. It's a matter of what you're going to want to pursue. So we'll step through them. One of the biggest opportunities across the board is process improvements. We are not as productive of a state as we could be. A lot of companies will say, oh, we're already good at that. I don't want to go there, and they'll go to the next thing. Well, I would argue you're not anybody's great. If you look at companies that are really relentlessly pursuing process improvements, they never stop because there's always gains to be made. And we go through it, males, right? There are potential to hire more males, but guess what? Not many. We have about 90% of males, 20 to 65 working. If you're going to laser focus on males, guess what? Good luck. There's roughly double the number of women not working as men. So what are your policies towards being open to females? Well, you go to when we're talking to a construction company, you look out the window and guess what? 99% male, 98% male. And so we just start having the conversations on the different opportunities and see what the company is willing to change. And some aren't.
Hey, Ron, for companies on this call and or others that would be interested in going deeper with you and your team, what does that look like? Can you share a little bit about what that experience or engagement looks like?
One, you email us, because I don't answer my phone ever. Two, I put you in the list of the 100 people that are calling us. So I'm trying to stop giving this presentation so we can work more with companies, because we are just being inundated. So what we do is first set up a call, and traditionally a company will say something like, I want my entire leadership team to see it, or I want my board of directors to see it, so everybody sees that we might have to change, because you alone, I mean, we talk to HR people alone, but I think you've got an uphill struggle. I'm talking to a company in a couple of weeks who want all their engineers to see it, because they want to start designing products differently, thinking they'll have less people to do warranty work and less people to do installation work and things like that. So they're really, as a company, thinking, how is this going to affect us across the company? So it really, I really would challenge any of you, if you don't get your leadership team bought into it. Typically we have like a 2-hour session, 30 minutes to see what you just saw, 30 minutes to answer every question, because if you don't believe this, I mean, then you're not going to change anything. And then basically an hour of talking through the elements. What can you win at? What do you think about that? What do you think about that? And trying to get them, the company leadership, the team, to pick and choose from the list.
Thank you.
Other questions? Here are some the prime questions I get, just to seed this a little bit. And if you're not going to ask me a question, then I'm
Ron, talk a little bit about the cost of living piece, because I know that comes up in the past. I've seen this before, and we're at 39 or 44th on wage and 39th on cost adjusted. And talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, Dustin brought this up, and I'm going to push back Dustin, and we're going to go at it. So the question I usually get is, doesn't cost of living give us an advantage? Shouldn't more people be moving here, et cetera? And my line is, I'll jump in front of a car and risk my life for two things: my granddaughter and my Caribou coffee in the morning. I know where I get the cheapest Caribou coffee, 20 ounces. It's on a thing. You might have heard about it. It's called Amazon. It's the great equalizer, because it costs the same pretty much everywhere. Except if I live in Ames, Iowa, instead of 20 ounces for 11 bucks, I only get 12 ounces. So there is this perception that it's actually, we have this low cost of living. I do some of my shopping at my granddaughter's in Minneapolis, because there are things in downtown Minneapolis I can get cheaper than in Ames, Iowa. Housing is cheaper, but not a lot of the rest of what we have. So if you look at it, Iowa ranks 44th in total compensation, salaries, wages, and benefits. We're beating this knot out of West Virginia, Arkansas, and Mississippi, right? Now, adjust for cost of living. Who's the most expensive place to live? Hawaii. Who's the cheapest? I forget. Iowa's like 12, 13% cheaper than the US average. So when you adjust for cost of living, Iowa moves up to 39, right? We're still kicking Arkansas and Mississippi. But every state around us, except South Dakota, I can live better than in Iowa in terms of cost of living and the wages I make. So are we going to attract another 500,000 people to Iowa? I'm not sure, with our weather problems and our wage structure. So there is a perception that it's low cost of living. It's lower, but our wages are lower as well. Okay, other
one question that came up. Yeah, Ron, one came up in the chat that can you touch on how this migration to virtual employees is impacting some of this research? I know you touched on productivity and technology. Is there any more to add on that piece?
Yeah, I get lots of questions on remote work. And this is one of them. Can't we all live in Iowa and telecommute other ways? Yes. COVID really threw a lump in the road, or whatever, a bump in the road. Remote work isn't new. We used to call it telework, right? Now it's called remote work. But the Department of Labor is catching up. They're starting to survey Americans now, and we're learning much more about remote work. My argument is this: there's a perception outside of Iowa of what we look like. It looks like the left. And I can live there and telecommute to Silicon Valley, or I can live in the right where my son lives outside Denver and telecommute to Silicon Valley. So can we win this war? Sure, but we can also lose it. Here's what we know. People in the United States are voting with their feet. Rural is the blue line, flatlined for 50, 60, 70 years. 1990 was the peak. Red line is urban population. People are moving to urban areas. 20,000, 50, 100, 500,000, million. They're not moving to rural. And we have a lot of rural in Iowa. So I think that beyond the cold weather, that, it's just, this is where people are choosing to live. So what do we know talking to companies in rural Iowa? They're struggling hiring professional staff. And the progressive companies have now started aggressively hiring professional staff remote, out of state, to supplement it. We talked to a company that needed a truck driver. They couldn't find truck drivers. So the trucks are leaving Iowa. They're now hiring truck drivers in the destination cities of their trucks. They're still the Iowa company's employee, but they're sleeping in another state and they're driving back and forth to Iowa the other way. And we do know, we've heard from companies, they're losing people to competition out of state. Talked to a company in Des Moines, offered somebody over 200,000, like a cybersecurity kind of job. Person worked for 3 days and quit and took a job for over 400,000 in California, living in Des Moines. So I think my fear is we could have more competition. The other piece of remote work is the government has what they call a take-up rate. They look at each kind. And in agriculture, what percent of jobs can be remote? Well, not very many. In insurance, finance, how many? Well, it's like 80%. So different kinds of jobs can be remote. And the take-up rate is what percent of jobs in the United States that could be remote are remote. And right now across the country, it's about 25%. So we actually could have a lot more remote work possible. Okay, not sure. Yep, go ahead.
Talk a little bit about immigration and where we are growing potentially, and what's the immigration tab? I feel like I'm on a game show here.
Yeah, there you go. Immigration. I get lots of questions. Are you in favor of illegal immigration, whatever? I'm in, let's look at the terminology, right? We're talking about a foreign-born population. And you've got to decide, are they coming here and they're going to be a permanent resident alien staying, or are you looking at temporary migrant workers that they're coming and leaving? You just have to decide. All these curves, the John Travolta curve, they all look the same except one, immigration. So they don't look like this sideways S. We're flatlined because there's almost no immigration in the Midwest. And then it goes up. There's 40, 50 communities that openly have a lot of immigration. Here is the real issue. Without immigration, this country's population is projected to peak in about 10 years. And that's the population, which means the workforce, since we're an aging population, there's going to be less and less workers. The thing about immigration, why these curves are so high, is because not only is the immigration a new person, immigrants tend to have more babies. And so it grows the population faster. These curves, low, medium, and high immigration, they're being downsized because it was based on data from 2010 to 2015, and immigration started turning down from 15 to 20. So these curves will be lower. So I'm not saying you should or should not embrace immigration. I'm saying if you don't, you all better have more babies or recruit a bunch of people to Iowa, or we're going to have even worse workforce problems. So I don't know what our time. Yeah, go ahead.
We got 20 minutes or so. Jenny, you've got a hand up, it looks like. Go ahead.
I had a question about the 4-year degrees. That one was really interesting to me because I know that our college enrollment rates are going down, probably because the cost of education. And then I also have heard more and more about, we don't necessarily recognize the credentialing that immigrants bring with them. So but yet I was just looking on Indeed, almost every job out there says you must have a 4-year degree, right? So I'm just wondering, I guess I don't know what my question is, but it feels like there's a disconnect between the skills in the job, the credentialing, and maybe the fact that young people aren't going to college at the same rate that they have in the past. Is there going to be a little bit of misalignment there as well too?
I think your comment, statement, question has about 3 different things minimum, if not more, into it. So let me correct something that I think you've been misled on, and then let me show you a few other things. So first, let's get the 4-year degree. Oh, well, then first, a different statement. This presentation is mainly about people. Where are the people that I can hire? There's a whole nother problem. Do those people have the skills I need? My argument is all the easy people have been hired, and all the people that have the skills that you need have been hired, and the people left likely are going to need some kind of training. And I'm not going to go too far down the training route. There's tons of different, that's another 24 presentations. This is about where are the people? So first of all, on 4-year degrees, the question, let me get up there. The question I often get is, and it's a question because they make a statement and then they follow it with right. They want me to affirm that they are correct. We need fewer 4-year degrees, right? So here's the data. Unfortunately, women are on the right. They make lower wages. Men are on the left. And this is how much education and how much money you make in your life. The more you go to school, you work less, but the more money you make offsets it. So the concept that I should have less education, can you imagine a country that builds itself saying we should all be less educated? I don't know that we want a country that says let's have less and less education, but this is the reality. This is what everybody's fighting against. And there's a talk on middle skill jobs. What we need is more middle skill. Well, middle skill jobs are decreasing. What's increasing? Non-routine cognitive, right? This is engineering and finance. You don't just sit and do the same thing every day. You got to think about it. What else? What happens? These people on the far left make a lot of money. And what do they do with their money? They want to go to the far right and go to hotels and have somebody clean the hotel room, and they want to eat at restaurants and have somebody serve on the table. So there's increase in non-routine manual. And my guess is that's going to keep increasing. We actually have less growth in the middle skill jobs. Routine cognitive, routine manual. Construction, production, sales, admin. Why? Because we have computers and robots and we're getting more efficient at doing things. In Iowa, we have a need for middle skill because we have a lot more small manufacturing. And certain types of industries need more middle skills. So in Iowa, we hear about the need for middle skills, but the US overall is going slowly away to the boundaries. Or, a bifurcation of skills and a bifurcation of wages. So 4-year degrees. Now I'm forgetting, I got myself wound up on 4-year degrees. And the rest of your question was about?
Well, I guess I
know what I was going to, wait, you said, you talked about colleges growing. I'm gonna hit you with my baseball bat now. Are you ready? What's the Vietnam Valley? It is a little long-winded here, but I'm going to show you a lot of data to tell you you guys have bigger problems maybe than what COVID just caused. It's actually called the baby bust. I don't like to call it a baby bust for a reason. What is it? So forget the bottom red line. That's people dying. I don't like to think about that at my age. The top blue line is babies being born in the United States. So on the far left, that's the baby boomers, right? And there's other bumps, you know, past my blue rectangle there. It's called the, I think they call it the boomer echo, right? I don't know what the boomers echoed off the moon and we came back. It means that there's a lot of baby boomers. And guess what? 20, 30 years later, they have a lot of babies. So you get these peaks and valleys. But you know what? There really weren't that many baby boomers. There's about 4 million baby boomers, and we're having about 4 million babies today. There were 150 million people after World War II in the United States, and they each were having 4 babies. Not all 150 million, I think just mainly the women. Guess how many people we have now? About 300 million. Guess how many babies we are now having? Each woman's having about 2. So we have twice the population, half the number of babies. We produce 4 million babies a year in the United States. It wiggles around. Except right here, we stopped producing 4 million babies a year. I call it the Vietnam Valley. What's going on? We had World War II and the Korean War, and people stopped having babies. Add 20 years to that, you get right smack in the middle of the Vietnam War. Between 67 and 82, we had 4 recessions. We had females start entering the workforce. Guess what? Delaying having babies. And we had this nasty thing called the Vietnam War. And heaven forbid, we started using birth control a lot more. Guess what else? We started graduating from high school at a higher rate. And guess what? We also started going to college, delaying having babies. And guess what happened in the middle of the Vietnam War? We stopped having 4 babies each, female, and plummeted to less than 2. And guess what happened? It happened fast, and it created that valley because we just stopped having a lot of babies. And we only had 150, 175 million people. So this is fertility rate. You need 2.1 babies per female. 0.1 doesn't make it to adulthood. We have been below holding our population steady since 1970. It has been immigration that has been growing the country. We are not replacing ourselves. This is immigration. My great-grandparents came here in like 1900, 1910. Guess what? All their kids died in 1960, 70. So right in the middle of the Vietnam War, when we started having a lot less babies, the population plummeted further. So we were kind of at the bottom. And so all that stuff led up to that. So what do you get? You get a population pyramid. Let's look at this. And I want to go back to this. In this curve, you see on the far right about 2007, the Generation Z born. In the 2008 recession, what happens in a recession? You stop having babies, and after the recession, you start having them. Well, guess what? After the 2008 recession, none of you got the memo. And our birth rates started to decline again. The new data for 2019 is like 1.70. You need 2.1 per female. The United States hit 1.70 in 2019. This, what I call the Vietnam Valley, this population pyramid, how this runs, these are 5-year increments, women to the right, men to the left, the percent of people between 0 and 5 is the bottom, then 5 to 10, then 10 to 15, and you go to the top and we die. So you're born at the bottom, you die at the top. Let's zoom in here. That massive, rapid reduction in birth rates in the Vietnam War, guess what? Subtract 1975 from 2022, you get this. In this 40 to 55-year-olds, it's not that there's a lot of baby boomers near the top of this chart that are leaving, it's that they're being replaced with this smaller group. The people leaving the workforce now in the next that have left in the last 5-10 years and are leaving now, like me, were being replaced with a smaller group of people to run companies, to be in leadership positions in companies. And guess what? Take 2007, when birth rates again in the United States started to decline. At 18 years, you get 2025. So down here at the bottom of this population pyramid, we are about to get hit with fewer 18-year-olds entering the workforce. And Jennifer, this is my long-winded answer to your question. There is going to be a problem in four-year colleges and community colleges and all the private colleges and public universities, because starting now and for the next 15, 20 years, unless people start having a lot more babies or we have more immigration, there's going to be fewer. All companies are going to be fighting, and universities are going to be fighting for 18-year-olds. So the issue I see coming is the boomers are being replaced by a smaller group, and we've got this smaller number of 18-year-olds. This is a US problem. Iowa has made it worse because it's cold and we're more rural and things like that. So this is why I believe we've got this issue for the next 20 years. Zooming in on you, I just pulled these last night. Here's Lynn County, right? These population pyramids look all different shapes, and you can change them by having people leave your county or move into your county, people dying unexpectedly or whatever. So you have down at the bottom, I'm looking at the curve on the left, this slight reduction in percent of your population that are 0 to 5, 5 to 10. These are in the next 10, 20 years, you're going to have fewer 18-year-olds. Up at the top, the boomers are leaving and dying, unfortunately. Makes me sad. And they're being replaced with this smaller kind of group, you see the 50 up there. The narrowing of this is this smaller group from the Vietnam Valley. Now look to the right, that's Johnson County. Some of these curves are really weird, right? You import 30,000 18 to 22-year-olds, and these curves get different shapes. So you got to look at the bottom. It's you can see the numbers of people. So but you see the bottom of this pyramid, it's going the other way. Guess what? You bring a bunch of 20-year-olds together and 25 and grad students, they start having babies. I don't know how that works. And so you can change the shape of the population pyramid. The key is, can you keep them where you are, or are they going to move away and go back to where they came from? That's the challenge. Okay, other questions?
Any last questions for Ron? Comments?
So if not, I will say my main message is not meant to be gloom and doom. I'm an engineer. Just tell me the problem. Now let's go solve it. This is an issue across the country. It's an issue that COVID didn't cause. I would argue that COVID just accelerated what was about to happen. We do see some of these people that have left the workforce starting to come back into it. I think I forget how many, 20 or 40,000, I think 40,000 people have entered the Iowa workforce in the last year. So that's a positive, but we still are hearing lots of companies need a lot more people. The question is, if we can't find them, if we can't get them to move to the state, then we've got to change how we run our companies to try to be more efficient and get more out of the people we have. But my main message is you've got to change. The world has changed and the demographics say things are different. If you keep doing what you're doing, I don't know that your luck's going to change. So my main push to you all is think about workforce differently and come up with new strategies. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Ron, and really appreciate you making us part of your 100 presentations and fitting us in towards the end here. This has been extremely insightful. My second opportunity to view this and appreciated the additional content as well. But I hope those of you on the call that are struggling or challenged by this will reach out to Ron and his team. We look forward to continuing this dialogue here at the local level, both through these regional quarterly meetings as well as inside of our own communities and counties. But change, I guess, is the operative word here, and a willingness to explore that and find some new solutions. So we're here to support those efforts wherever we can. Please reach out and leverage us, but also leverage the resources like Ron and others. Just a big thank you again to Ron and his team and Dustin and his team for spending some time with us today and educating us on the state of things and the opportunities ahead. So I really appreciate it. Thank you, Ron.